So you've drawn this object in an orthographic view. You have your front, your top, and your side. And when we look at it, we end up with this. Now, we have our front view, we have our top view, and our side view. Whoa, hey, what is that? What are these dashed lines for? Well, for this video, I want to get into some different types of lines and also some rules about extra information that we can give on these orthographic drawings. I want to just point out that the whole point of this is to clearly show our object and provide some dimensions and information. Alright, so going down here, line types. While you're drawing, there are different types of lines that you can use to convey more information or different information. So construction lines are just very light lines that you can use to help guide, draw your object. You have a center line, which would be in the center of a circle, hidden lines, which is what we saw, and then you have phantom lines, strong lines, break lines, and dimension lines. I want to point that one out. I'm going to get into these line types while showing you some dimensioning rules. Okay, you have access to this list, which is basically everything I'm going to go over now. Rule number 1. Dimensions, or measurements, should not be duplicated, nor should the same information be given in two different ways. So, if you look at this practice object that we had, here, it's got a hidden line, but it's also got measurements, dimensions. So just to explain the hidden line, a hidden line shows up whenever there's an object line, which are just basically the lines of the object, that you can't see. So if I go to that right side and I were to get X-ray vision, I would be able to see that there's an object line that I can't see. That's when we use a hidden line. And you'll also see that it lines right up with the ledge in the front view. So this first rule is telling you only put your measurements once. So anything in red is extra. You don't want it. I can get by with just one measurement on one of the views because they're perfectly lined up. Next one. Dimensions should not be duplicated, nor should the... Oh, here's the correct method. Number 2. Dimensions should be attached to the view that best shows the contour of the feature to be dimensioned. So, contour is a word that comes up in the makeup industry. It's essentially using makeup to either exaggerate or reduce features on your face. So I don't know, point your cheeks or something, I don't know, thinner chin line, or you use makeup for that. So I want you to think, using makeup to change shape. Okay, shape. It's all about the shape that best represents the object. So if I look at my object and I look at my top, my front, and my side view, my guess is that the front view is actually a much better representation of the object as a whole. Here's the correct method. We use that front view for most of our measurements because all of the unique features are in that front view. Next rule, whenever possible, avoid dimensioning to hidden lines. Don't dimension to hidden lines, dimension to the real lines. Looks like that. So instead of measuring the 0.75 inches for this example, here, or instead of doing it here, you do it here. Next up, avoid dimensioning over or through the object. Very critical. See how messy this is? Look at that front view. It's terrible. Get rid of that. Instead, we want something like this. All of your dimensions are on the outside. Now there's rules about how far your dimensions should be away from the object, but for now, I just want to point out they're using dimension lines. I didn't mention this before. They're using dimension lines and arrows. So you have these thin little lines that line up perfectly with the object. From them, you have a blackened arrowhead, and in between the arrows, in between, don't do a full line, leave a gap. That's where you put your measurements. Next up, whenever possible, locate the dimensions between adjacent views. Adjacent just means next to. So if you have a top view and a front view, put your dimensions in between. It's going to make your picture, your drawing, look a lot neater. This dimension is not between the views, but it's a better placement than dimensioning the hidden line on the right side view. So here, it's right next to the object line that it needs to dimension. All right. In circles, in general, circle is dimensioned by diameter and an arc by its radius. So we may be getting into circles and arcs, but if ever you dimension these, you use what's called a leader arrow or a leader line. Basically, it's like a dimension line, but it's only got one side. And we angle that like 15 degrees or so. And here, this symbol means diameter. So this is telling me it's a 1/2 inch diameter hole through the entire object. This one is an arc, so it's a radius. Radius is half the diameter. So this arc is 1/4 of an inch. Next, holes are located by center lines, which can be extended or use it as an extension lines. So here, you would not say how far the distance is from the edge of the object to the edge of the circle. Instead, you would go to the center. Why? Well, if you send this to somebody and they have to build it, they're not going to be drawing a circle to cut a hole. They're going to have a drill that aims right at a single point. So you want to tell them where that center point is. Holes should be located and sized in a view that best shows the feature as a circle. If it's a circle, dimension it where it's a circle. Don't do this hidden lines dimensioning for the circle. It's no good. Do it like this. Spacing. So, depending on your class, I may or may not be stringent about this, but the first dimensions are 3/8 of an inch away and then 1/4 afterwards. So you'll notice some of these have multiple layers of dimensions, like here. The first dimension is going to be 3/8 away from the object, and then 1/4 inch, and then 1/4 inch. I'll give you more detail on that in class. So, we covered hidden lines and dimensioning lines, two good ones to get into for right now. And then we went over some of the rules. You will be using these rules moving forward in our class.